welcome back to Beerfield Fantasy Football. I am your host, @HopBFF with two P's, as always, joined by the wonders of technology by @3BFF with two F's from Springfield, Illinois. Dan.
What's going on? I don't see that we're on YouTube. Are we not live?
Says I'm live.
Oh, weird. Anyways.
So I'm on our YouTube page and it says, hey, you are live. The internet can totally see you now. To stop, use your encoder.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm doing good, as we figure out our lives on air like we usually do.
Yeah, didn't touch the encoder part, so I think we're okay.
Okay.
For those of you that haven't noticed, by now we made some changes to audio routing, so there shouldn't be a high-pitched, annoying noise anymore. That should be gone now after months and months and months of dealing with that. So you're welcome as we continue to strive to be less amateur. There's more I have to say for this intro. Hey, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Untapped @BeerfieldFF, Facebook, YouTube, Beerfield Fantasy Football. We have merch. We have a Patreon. There's 1 day left to donate to the Wrestling for a Gear partnership. So that's today. If you're on YouTube, head over to that GoFundMe. If you're not, it's already closed. We will be at the Midwest Fantasy Football Expo, MidwestFFExpo.com for that. Promo code BEER. Saves $5, I think.
We like that. That's good.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
I need more support on this.
Sorry. I'm just trying to get everything shared on our social media accounts. You guys know that we're live.
We are really live, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
It just didn't show up on my subscriptions. It was weird.
Just making sure. So, about the delay for me being able to record today. Clearly, I'm missing something. I kind of went to shave earlier today and give my upper lip a chili bowl.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was bad. I did it, and I'm like, oh, that's too much off the mustache. So, the only real option there is to go with the, chin patch or just shave it. So that was my crisis.
Oh man.
So it was, as live studio audience put it, you gave your upper lip a chili bowl.
I've been there before and just kind of overshaven a little bit, and I've had to clean shave before, and it's scary.
Yeah, it is.
It's not fun.
Takes 5 years off my life. And I look younger. Anyway, we're going to talk about the NFC North today. Vikings fan and Bears fan actually run the show, so this is obviously our favorite division to talk about. Hopefully there's not a lot of variance and a lot of bickering, but there definitely is a potential to be. We'll just see how that ends up.
Yes.
But before we do that, as always, we got to let you know what is fueling us today.
What's fueling Beerfield?
All right, Dan, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking Scorpion Bowl. It's from Stone. It's a West Coast RPA, tropical IPA. There's a very long and almost 2 paragraphs worth of notes on this thing on the can, so I'm not going to read it off. But you'll get my thoughts on that later.
All right. And I am new brewery, actually, that has not been on this show before. I'm drinking an apple spice Gosa from Crane Brewing out of Raytown, Missouri. It's a sour Gosa, checks in at 4.5%. Not normally my favorite style of beer, but I was intrigued enough by it because you don't see a lot of apple spices in Gosas. It's normally with something that's naturally tart already, like cherry or citrus. So we're going to give that a shot. We will let you know what we think, and we'll do that about midway through the episode. Let's go ahead and get into the news.
News.
All right, starting off with Tyreek Hill. There's rumors floating around he's facing a maximum 4-game ban following his offseason troubles. Be right in line with kind of what Zeke got for his stuff he didn't get charged for, but definitely did. So, yeah, at least the NFL is finally being consistent if that is what comes to fruition. As always, just wait for actual news before you start fading and whatnot. But and things like Scott Fishbowl with draft soon. You got to plan on that 4 game.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not, set in stone yet, so don't get too crazy. It could be like the Zeke situation where he doesn't face his suspension until later on into the season, especially if he fights it, but it sounds like he doesn't want to fight it. It sounds like he just wants it to be done and over with. Just how Kareem Hunt did with his suspension with Cleveland. So we spoke in length about how we feel about Tyreek Hill and how we feel about this situation. So we'll just keep it light with just the fantasy takes. But yeah, just wait until we know more, until you do anything too crazy with it.
Yep. And if you're drafting insanely early for a redraft league, then just plan on the 4 gamer.
Mm-hmm.
All right, on to injury news. Bengals rookie tackle and their first-round pick, Jonah Williams, is likely to miss 2019. He had a surgery to repair a torn labrum. So
Jesus.
more bad news for Bengals first-rounders who have not been healthy now like 5 years running, I think was a graphic I saw.
Yeah, it's been insane. I think they showed how many total games or snaps they played in the rookie season, and I think 1 player's played.
Yeah, and it was only amusing when it was John Ross.
Yeah, it's bad. I haven't faded this too much for the offensive player. I think it would, if it hurts anybody, it could be Mixon. And by hurt, I mean I don't know by how much.
Yeah, because it is a tackle. That's worse for Dalton than Mixon, I would think. I mean, hurts outside, but generally interior line's going to hurt the running game more. So I'm not too concerned about Mixon, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not going to really try to adjust any rankings based on that. The fact that they didn't have him last year and Mixon was able to be, fairly productive. So
that is the other thing. You can't really miss what you never had.
So,
all right, that's all I got for that segment. Let's move on to a new segment we introduced last week called Drinking the Kool-Aid. It's where we drop some of the hype news and tell you whether we're buying into it or not.
Are we drinking the Kool-Aid?
All right, go ahead and going to start with the Cardinals. Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, and Andy Isabella are the top 3 wideouts per Darren Urban, who's a Cardinals.com writer.
I mean, I'm not shocked by it. That's what we all expected. He was the first of the 3 receivers they took in this year's draft.
So do you buy those are going to be the 3 most productive this season?
No, I'm not. I think with Isabella, I think you'll need a bigger outside guy. It's tough because they're 2.5 slot receivers there. It just depends what you want to do with Kurt. I know they'll push Kurt outside. Fitz will play, I guess, inside, but then what? With Isabella who can play outside, fine. But
right,
I'm not entirely sure.
I think Isabella's on the field in 4 wide receiver threats or sets when they go double wide, but I'm right there with you. I think I actually projected it as Kevin White with an inside edge over Chad Williams and Andy Isabella. That's not to say White's going to be fantasy relevant, but I think he is on the field in 3 wide receiver sets just to give them somebody outside. Also, not a Chad Williams, although a lot of people don't think he's going to make the roster, and Hakeem Butler has not come on well. So right now it's Kevin White for me.
Yeah, it's going to be I'm not looking. I haven't done the NFC West spoiler alert yet for my projections. This is the one team I've been dreading since we started projections, is trying to figure out the Cardinals.
It's hard. I will throw it out there. I haven't done it. I've got Kirk and Fitzgerald both being very possessable, but no other wide receiver.
That makes
or
sense.
Tight end for that matter.
That makes a lot of sense, as it should.
All right. Per TJ Yeldon, the Buffalo backfield will be, quote, a heated battle during training camp.
I mean, it shouldn't be that hard for him to win the job. I mean, I won't say win the job, but at least
win the lion's share of touches. Yeah,
I think I just can't. It's hard for me to think that Frank Gore can do it yet again on his 4th team and find a way to be a somewhat productive running back, or at least be bye-week fillable. LaShawn McCoy just made up being more of a just more of a pass catching guy because I think the health finally caught up with him, and we here don't believe in Devin Singletary. So
nope. I take heated battle here to mean heated battle in the same way the Puppy Bowl's an intense heated battle. That's kind of how I see this.
Yeah, I mean, it could be really gross. So it could be like a worse Philadelphia Eagles. Like, I will not be shy. Like, I have no desire to own any Buffalo Bill running back.
Yep, I fully expect it to be terrible.
Yeah.
Sticking with the Bills, Cole Beasley will lead the Bills in catches per Vic Carucci.
I don't see how that's Josh Allen's worst like part of the field is thrown it underneath. So
and intermediate routes, yeah.
I don't see it, but if he takes a big leap, then I guess it wouldn't shock me.
Zay Jones leads the Bills in catches. That's
Zay Jones leads the team, leads all receivers in fantasy points.
Oh, just in Buffalo. Clarifying statement. Yes, I agree with that. Zay Jones is not the wide receiver one.
This is not a massive hot take.
No, but he is the best in Buffalo. All right, the Bucs are, quote, really excited about the progress made by Ronald Jones in the offseason. Do we believe Ronald Jones made a ton of progress? In the follow-up, per Greg Auman of The Athletic, he calls it, quote, certainly likely Peyton Barber will finish with more yards than Ronald Jones.
So this is a worse Niners situation in terms of when you want to take a running back, because I don't believe in both of them. But Jones has gotten praise that he's just more comfortable. He's not trying to do too much. He's learning the playbook. I think they probably dumbed it down a little bit for him in terms of what his role is going to be. I'm buying that Peyton Barber finishes with more yards, but I think Jones will find a way to earn more fantasy points, which means I don't want to own any of them.
Yeah, I would stop short of calling it certainly likely. I do think it probably happens, but I'm not as, I'm not as confident as Greg Auman is to say it's certainly likely. And I do believe Ronald Jones is better. I believe that there's fire behind that smoke.
I think the offense is going to be built, or it's going to be more suited for a Ronald Jones type of running back who needs a good offensive line and needs a lot of space to operate. So if the Bucs can give him that, and Jones can take advantage of really light fronts against this high-powered passing offense, I think you should be excited because he could be a steal in the 8th, 9th, 10th round that he's been going in.
Yep. All right, last one. Will Disley will have a big role this season, end quote.
Okay.
That's per Seahawks.com, John Boyle.
Sometimes blocking tight ends need their love too.
I projected Disley over Vanette just because he was trending that way at the end of the season. I don't predict either to be fantasy relevant.
I mean, it took Jimmy Graham massive touchdown to be fantasy relevant within that offense.
So Dax goes back 7 or 6 years for me, the database that I'm putting together.
Yeah.
The Seahawks in that time frame have only thrown more than they've ran twice.
Yeah. I mean, the years with Marshawn Lynch and a dominant defense, they didn't need to get a lot out of Russell Wilson.
So even last year, where the defense was 11th, they ran more than they passed by about 100 attempts.
It's just so bad.
So, yeah, I don't expect it to be that big of a spread. Spoilers for 2 weeks from now, but I don't think the tight ends have a ton of relevance there.
No.
Even if Disley is better than Vanette or has a big role or whatever. Big role is a blocking tight end. That's just a big role.
Yeah.
All right, on to the LOL news of the week, and we're going back to one of my favorite targets for this.
Laugh Out Loud news of the week.
So as it would turn out, I don't hate the Panthers as much as you thought I did 2 years ago. I just hate Dave Gettleman, apparently. Eli Manning, quote, doesn't think he's in a competition with Daniel Jones. This is, of course, after very public comments have been made about Manning not being guaranteed to start week 1.
So this episode is kind of themed. It's the worst version of blank, I feel like, because this is the worst version of the Ravens last year. Or I think Flacco felt the same way about Lamar Jackson.
I think so too. It could even be the Bears of a couple of years ago with the Mike Glenn and Mitch Trubisky thing.
Yeah, I mean this is
Trubisky wasn't ready to start, but Glennon wasn't a starter. and it was just a dumpster fire.
Yeah, I mean, if Daniel Jones is far worse than Trubisky, at least coming out of college, at least through my eyes, I'm sure through yours as well. So,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I feel bad for Giants fans.
Giant mistake if Daniel Jones starts early on. Maybe that's why Manning doesn't see it as a competition. Maybe it was a slight. Maybe it's like, yeah, there's no way this guy is good enough.
I just hope Saquon stays healthy.
I do too.
So many touches
And
for him.
Giants fans better also.
Yeah, right.
All right, let's get to the NFC North.
Division Preview.
All right, as we've done the last few weeks, we're going to run through the NFC North. We're going to run through the teams in alphabetical order. We will not spend a ton of time on guys we firmly know what their role is. Hasn't changed a whole lot, what we expect them to be. Think Devontae Adams, for example, out of this division. We will spend more time talking about battles, places people have been added, guys who are in the second years of offenses, things like that. We'll run through the teams in alphabetical order. We'll give a projected finish at the end. We'll review a beer about halfway through, and we'll try to know stuff and give you our stat projections as we go. Let's start with the Bears. So, leading off, the only thing I have Mustone in Chicago listed out is Tariq Cohen, and even then, he's a running back too.
I was a little shocked to see that, but I think, like with James White in New England, there's enough of a floor.
It's exactly what it is.
That should keep him in that RB2 range with some upside to him.
He's a weekly flex plug-in that you can kind of leave out there. He's got a little bit more boom than what James White has, even though the floor is about the same. And I think they're ranked within 2 spots of each other for me.
I think they're right about the same. I have them a little bit higher. A little bit. I actually have them 2 ranks. Yeah. 2 ranks higher than James White, but a lot more about 20 more points.
Yeah. All right. So let's start with Trubisky. How big of a leap do you see for him in year 2 with Matt Nagy? Reports out of camp have been good that he's doing things he wasn't doing last year, has a better hold on the offense. Second year with Allen Robinson, Trey Burton, in this kind of revamped offense, Anthony Miller. So how do you see Mitch Trubisky performing?
So there's one nice thing, and when you do projections, when you look through game logs and things like that, you notice a big trend. With the Bears, it was huge. First 6 weeks of the season, they go 3-3. Trubisky throws the ball over 35 times a game, on pace of 563. The Bears figure this shit out. The defense gets a hell of a lot better. They go 8-0, and Trubisky then falls to 27.9, I think, attempts per game, and far less than his far less attempts. I think that shifts to more what we saw in the first 6 weeks. A lot better competition. The NFC North draws the AFC West and the NFC East. Far better offenses. Teams improved, even in the NFC North on that side of the ball. And just because of how good their defense was, you can kind of expect maybe a little regression, even though I still think it's a top 5 defense in the league. So for me, I have Trubisky at 563 attempts on that same 16-game pace, because I think with what they added on offense through the draft, this team wants to go more run heavy. It's why you drafted David Montgomery. He was more of a balanced running back who can give you both. So Trubisky, 563 attempts, just shy of 4,200 yards, 27 touchdowns. Turnovers have been a bit of a problem in his first 2 years. So I have him at 19 total, 15 picks and 4 fumbles. But because of his rushing floor, which does not get talked about enough, I'm having at 439 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, which puts him firmly as a back in 1 high QB2.
All right. So a little different narrative. I see him throwing the ball a little bit less, more towards that second half pace, but sure. I see him being more efficient with it also. Not quite as bad as what they're doing in Seattle. I mean, I don't see him running more than they're throwing, but Nagy, when you look back at kind of in Kansas City when it was ideally doing what he wanted to do, they're still running the ball a bit more. The Bears defense is still going to be good. And outside of the NFC North, which is going to be uber competitive, you don't necessarily catch a lot of scariness. So for me, I've got Trubisky at 535 pass attempts, I do have him running about the same as you do, 64 rushes, 416 yards. Turnovers are a bit down. Again, that's just a progression thing.
Sure.
I think that he does get better with that. I've got him throwing 13 interceptions, fumbling twice, 3,900 yards. He actually comes in at quarterback 15 for me points-wise, which makes him a decent streamer, and a good quarterback, too, in Superflex again. I'm not as convinced in his receivers necessarily, particularly still not a huge believer in Allen Robinson or a high volume passing attack. So much as I am, you drafted David Montgomery, you've got Tariq Cohen, you've got Mike Davis. You put a bunch of speed out there. I think this is Seattle light, where they try to go with the run, they try to go with defense, and then they rely on efficiency and big plays and clutch third downs.
Yeah, we went in a very different direction, which is going to make the rest of these conversations.
Although, really, results for Trubisky weren't that far off.
Oh no, it's just no, of course, because you have him being a little more efficient.
Efficient, exactly. You just got more attempts.
I just have him as more attempts. You get the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Raiders, the Eagles, the Cowboys. I mean, there's teams out there that can give him fits. On top of the Saints and Rams for finishing number 1 in the division.
Yeah,
they got teams they have to keep up with. Their defense is fantastic, though, and so
they had no problem keeping up with the Rams last year. Did they?
Exactly. So there's a lot of things that could change. It's just I like what the Bears are putting out on offense, and I think you could see a little bit of an uptick in the passing for that.
No, I agree with that. I would not be surprised, honestly. And I think we just went about it in a different way. You went in an uptick in volume, and I went with an uptick in efficiency.
That's very fair.
So, all right, moving on. Run DMC. They draft David Montgomery. They bring in Mike Davis. Davis Montgomery Cohen is what DMC stands for. Chicago media is running with that. Whatever. Anyway, how do you see this breaking down between the three backs? Where do you got them at?
So I think I'm going to be really different. I think this is where we could be a bit different because I see Montgomery's, or not me, but I've seen him on Twitter and through other people as the quote unquote like main lead back, and for sure, and I have him for my own projections doing a lot more splitting with Mike Davis, but
so do I.
Okay, actually. Perfect. All right, so for me, Tariq Cohen's the guy to own in this backfield. He won't get the rushes because that's not his part of the game. I actually have him losing a little bit to that department because Mike Davis is more of a true backup to Montgomery than what Benny Cunningham was to Jordan Howard last year. But because of the uptick on offense in terms of passing, the targets are still there, 92 targets, 72 receptions, just shy of 700 yards and 4 touchdowns. That gives him, for me, 6 total touchdowns, just shy of 1,000 total yards, which puts him firmly as you've put it, as a flex option, low in RB2 with that safe floor. For Montgomery and Davis, I have Montgomery 60% of the leftover rushes. So for me, I have the Bears just running backs getting 338 rushes, which puts them slightly below, I think, what league average was last year, just because that uptick in passing. So 60% of those left over. Montgomery's at 162 to Mike Davis is 108. But because of Montgomery's ability to win in the open space, especially at the line of scrimmage, 6 rushing touchdowns, 7.
How many rushes do you have for David Montgomery?
162. Okay. I don't think a running back, there's no clear running back. I won't say one, but there's no clear like bell call in this offense. I don't think that's what Nagy wants to do. That's why he brought in Mike Davis, who is able to at least prove that he can be a decent change of pace, and then split some of the work there. But it's going to be all the passing work to Cohen. I have Montgomery only getting 27 targets. I think that could change as he progresses more into this offense. So 827 total yards for Montgomery to Mike Davis is 558. The touchdowns is where that changes, though. 7 total for Montgomery, 3 for Mike Davis, which puts Montgomery as a good flex bye week fill-in, and then Davis as a if there's an injury, he may become relevant.
All right, so we had the splits pretty much the same. It's just the volume. And again, I think we had the Bears running the same amount of plays. You gave them more pass volume. I gave them a little bit more rush volume. I've got them running about 40 more times than you do. I think those 40 actually went to David Montgomery, believe it or not. I got Montgomery carrying 202 times to Mike Davis's 105. I've got Cohen, again, under 100 rushes. I don't think he gets a ton of them. I don't think they shut him out in the rush game either. I got him running about 6 times a game. It's 99 rush attempts for him.
That's fair.
Kind of change of pace. He's going to mix in. We know that. He does lead them in targets with 96, 73 receptions, 639 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. He is the back to own because he has that explosiveness in the rush game. Any form of PPR, you do want Tariq Cohen, at least at the right price. David Montgomery is going to lead the team in rush yards, and I believe I've got him a little bit over Cohen or over. No, I don't. A little bit behind. It's just under 1,000 scrimmage yards. I've got him at 9 total touchdowns, 1 receiving, and 8 on the ground for
That's
Montgomery.
very
869 rush yards, 126 receiving yards. I do have Mike Davis having some relevance, not a lot. I don't think they signed him for nothing, but just 12 targets for him. I don't think he sees nearly the receiving work he did in Seattle. He's not going to be more than a David Montgomery handcuff. Something happens to Montgomery, then I think Mike Davis comes in and then is fantasy relevant. Until then, you're going to see him on the field enough to be annoying, not enough to be fantasy relevant. So Tariq Cohen, I want to own. David Montgomery, I'm completely okay as a later round back, like most of the rookies are going to be this season. Throw him out there. You're going to get some relevance out of him, and you could get some upside, especially later in the season. And Mike Davis, don't bother.
Yeah. And I think Montgomery could be a good second half guy if he can take a hold of this offense and kind of weed out Mike Davis. There is a lot of upside. As we saw with Jordan Howard, he had 9 rushing touchdowns with very little production elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. And we're trying to be conservative here, having not seen
of course,
training camp heard anything. This could completely change come preseason when drafts are actually happening. So keep listening, because we will adjust these based on what comes out of training camp, what we see through the media, and what we see in preseason and how guys are being used. Mike Davis is playing into the 3rd and 4th quarter, probably going to fade a little bit towards Montgomery more.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Moving on to the wide receivers, you got a second-year Allen Robinson in Chicago. Anthony Miller entering his second year without dislocating a shoulder 3 times. Taylor Gabriel's back. They've added some additional speed. There's been some hype around Javon Wims. How do you see the wide receivers here?
It's gross. It's of course Robinson number 1. And I went and I looked back at his target share with Jacksonville and kind of what he's been. 24, I think, and 0.5% was his highest that he's had. Last year, he was banged up for the majority of the season. I felt like, I think by like week 3 or 4, he was already hurt. So if he can stay healthy, I do have him playing 16 games because I do believe that he'll figure his shit out and be able to stay healthy. Not reaching that 24.5% target share, but I think it'll increase just given the clusterfuck that's underneath him. Miller is my number 2, but I didn't project anybody else because I don't think Gabriel is the true 3rd. He may end up with the 3rd most points on this team, but I don't think he's going to be the 3 throughout. So I didn't want to project him. For Robinson, I have him at 132 targets, just over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, because that's been his role. That's what he's always done. He's a big play guy, but he can also fill in as a possession receiver on top of being a nice red zone target.
Man, you projected him at his ceiling, didn't you?
Yeah, a little bit. I may have been a little bit higher on him. I think the yards per reception is where people get a little. Because it's a bit higher for me at 13.8. He is a deeper guy because I like to use him as a 50-50 guy.
I got him at 14.1. I just don't have the volume, and I don't have him playing 16 games. That's
fair.
That's the wishful thinking part, is him playing 16 games.
Yeah, he was relatively
a lot closer
healthy.
if I project him at 16 games. I just don't.
Yeah, 2 years ago he tore his ACL, so you can't really ding him on that. Last year was when things became a little more Alshon Jeffrey-ish light. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because he played a little bit more. Outside of, I think, year 1, he was a little banged up too. But moving on to Miller, I have him at 84 targets as the number 2 here, 678 yards, 5 touchdowns because he was able to get it done on big plays and just found ways to play through because he's got massive grit. As a fine wide receiver, 4-3-ish kind of guy who could give you some bye week fill in.
All right. So Allen Robinson, I don't believe in. I don't believe he's going to stay healthy. I don't believe in his efficiency. I don't believe in a lot of things that have to do with Allen Robinson because he's given us one good season. He gave us one good season with garbage time Bortles, and everybody thinks he's like king shit. And he hasn't been outside of that. It's just back to the matter. I did project him at 14.1 yards per reception. He's a deeper guy, just 14 games, 102 targets, 61 receptions, 5 touchdowns. I do think he has a role. I do think he's a leading target getter. He hasn't proven to be a high efficiency guy, though. He hasn't proven the ability to stay healthy outside of, I think, one season. So, yes, it was a torn ACL, but last year he was equally banged up. And unfortunately, when you've been not healthy 3 out of 4 years, I have to project you that way. Yeah. Anthony Miller, on the other hand, I do project him taking a step forward. I do not see him catching less touchdowns than he did last season on twice as many targets, roughly. So I believe he had 7 last year, so I project him at 9 this season. They do look for him in the red zone. He is probably their best red zone weapon, even better than Trey Burton, in my opinion. I got him at 88 targets, 56 receptions, 716 yards. Our big difference is the touchdowns. I think with more volume comes more touchdowns, not fewer.
That's fair. I just think just given the lack of volume and then the massive touchdowns that he's got from it, it's kind of like, what I did with Calvin Ridley, where it's you might not get the type of big plays that he had. He had, I think, a few games where he had 4 catches and one of them was a touchdown. I know you don't want to deem him on that, but when it comes to touchdowns, I try to be a little more conservative, especially when there's multiple competitions you want to run, not with just Robinson and Burton, but, with Adam Shaheen, I guess maybe with one of the running backs, they want to go more run heavy in the red zone. I was just a little more conservative on my touchdown outlook with Miller.
Yeah, and to me, there's big play, and then there's, red zone opportunity. And when a guy gets 22% of the team's end zone targets, I'm a little more adept to that versus, a guy that didn't necessarily see a high yards per pass route, high yards per target, high yards per reception. I mean, he's only at 12.8 yards per reception. It's not like he was out there Taylor Gabrieling it. So to me, the touchdowns are more he's getting targeted in the red zone, not necessarily he's breaking big plays. I mean, good yards per reception for a wide receiver, as you know from looking through this, is not 12.8. I mean, you're typically high 13s and up for guys that are going to be more big play, even into the 16s to 18s. So for me, that's why I didn't ding his touchdowns as much as I did. You're right on the Ridley comparison. There's a lot of red zone target share, but if a team's looking for somebody in the red zone, I will tend to lean more towards they're going to keep that up than a guy like, say, David Moore, who just broke up a few big ones and turned it into 5 touchdowns on like 30 targets.
Yeah, and that's completely fair. I mean, he had 1 less target than Allen Robinson last year. They're both shared about the same amount of end zone target shared per PF. This is per player profile. If you guys want to go out there and look.
Yeah, player profilers were all that was coming from, too.
That's why I love Trubisky and his upside, which is why I projected him to throw a little bit more.
Yeah. All right, Trey Burton in year 2. Go.
Not as optimistic, I guess.
Nor should you be. Thankfully, that hype train is dead.
Yeah, he'll see respectable targets. I have him at 75. Which I think is going to put him as the true number 3, at least in targets, not counting Cohen. I got him at shy of 600 yards and 5 touchdowns. I think the red zone work is split out. I might even reduce Allen Robinson's touchdowns a little bit more because I think there's just more to do down there when you have multiple tight ends to use and just multiple receivers that can fulfill that role. She's about 113.7 fantasy points for him, which puts him into that clusterfuck of tight ends where
I got him at 122, tight end 20, which is, when you say clusterfuck at tight ends, I just want to give some perspective to this because I'm making them with my projections. Tight ends 7 through 20 are roughly 15 points apart.
Yeah, I think, because right now Hooper is my 5, Herndon is my 6, and that's the 15-point gap, and there's so much that can happen between. It's nuts.
Yeah, I've got 13 guys within 15 points of each other.
Yeah, it's gonna be like it's been the last couple of years where it's your up top guys, you got some of your your 4, 5, and 6 guys that have upside, and then you just the shit that's afterwards.
Yeah, you're not off on Trey Burton. I've got him at 84 targets, just over 600 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Okay.
It's a fair projection for him based on what he did last year. Really, I don't expect a big jump up for him.
Yeah, I mean, there's more to add there. They added 2 receivers in free agency. They drafted another receiver, and really, and then they brought in some more UDFAs. So there's a lot of shifting that's going on, and we're starting to see what Nagy wants from some of their players, where he's bringing in guys to fit a certain role, not just an overall player, it feels like.
Yep. Adam Shaheen's there. He'll be mildly annoying. That's all.
He'll be annoying. He'll be annoying enough.
Yep. He'll be annoying. So just to recap the Bears, Trubisky's kind of a higher tier streamer. Cohen should have some upside as a running back too. Montgomery has some upside probably later in the season. He's worth a roster spot. Allen Robinson, if you're on Dan's train, is a high wide receiver too. If you're on mine, he's a low 3 to 4. Anthony Miller, worth a flyer.
Yeah.
Trey Burton is worth a shot in the late rounds, just like almost any other starting tight end is.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not special.
No.
All right. That's it for the Bears. Let's go ahead and keep it moving and go on to whatever team's next in alphabetical order, which is the Lions. I had to get back to my notes. That's what we call stall tactic. As for must-owns for the Lions, I have meh written down. Go ahead.
I think it's none.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any must-owns here.
There's nobody there I'm looking at and saying I have to own them. So let's go ahead and break this down. Let's start with Matt Stafford coming off of a down year in a more run-focused offense.
It's tough because I think pretty much every year his attempts have gone down. Mm-hmm. You can say, they've had Jim Bob Cooter for a while. They bring in Darrell Bevel. Speaking of Darrell Bevel, just people want to say that he's a massive run guy. He goes from Peterson to Marshawn Lynch. He goes from the best grinders we've seen in this decade to these RBBCs that have shifted their offense to being more pass heavy. As we saw with Wilson with Darrell Bevel's final 2 years with Seattle, as he was more in the upper half of passing attempts. But with all that being said, I don't think Stafford still throws the ball a shit ton. I have him throwing 553 times, which is about where he was last year. He's never been a big touchdown guy, which is a bit weird because I always thought he was a little bit more onto that. I've thrown for 25 touchdowns, just over 4,000 yards. He'll offer some rushing upside to him, but he'll be just a middle of the road quarterback. I'm not high on Stafford. I think that train passes for me.
I'm also not high on Stafford. That train did pass for me. And you talk about Darrell Bevel not really being a big run guy. Well, you're right. His last 2 seasons in Seattle, they did throw more than they ran, but the first 3, they ran more than they threw. And he did come off of Lynch and Peterson. You're right about that too. But Matt Patricia made it very, very abundantly clear he wanted to be a run-first offense. He said it in the media. He showed it at the end of last year. They brought in C.J. Anderson to protect Kerryon Johnson. They want to be a run-first offense, and that's bad for Stafford's pass attempts. Got him throwing the ball just 535 times. One thing Bevel was good at with Wilson was deep shots, and with Kenny Golladay, you're going to have those. So
and Marvin Jones, too.
And Marvin Jones, exactly. So 4,100 yards, but just 29 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. This is like Kirk Cousins. But I feel like enough people have leapfrogged this, and you're really starting to see quarterbacks have to have some form of a rushing floor in order to break into startable status, honestly, or an elite arm, and Stafford doesn't fit either of those.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you hit the nail on the head there. He doesn't offer any really sort of rushing upside, and he doesn't have the massive passing numbers on an offense that should only see middle of the road passing attempts and total plays ran. So
right,
a lot would need to happen for things to get better for him, I think, as a whole.
It would, and really that a lot having to happen would be like the offense suddenly deciding to be pass oriented again, and he throws the ball 70 more times that I haven't projected for.
Yeah,
that's kind of where you got to be for Matt Stafford to be relevant. So he was a good late round buy a couple of years ago, and really I think part of it is just the league surpassed what Matt Stafford is with the infusion of guys like Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz, Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott, guys like that offer you maybe not the best arm, but they give you rushing floor every week, where Matt Stafford doesn't do that. So he's no longer the late round steal that he was before.
He's with the Andy Daltons of the world.
That's exactly where I have him, is right in front of Andy Dalton, actually.
I think it's the same for me.
All right, moving on to the running game. Kerryon Johnson had injury problems in college. He had injury problems last year, even though he was good the couple weeks he was there. He was the first Lions running back to put up a 100-yard game in forever. You bring in CJ Anderson, you got Theoretic still hanging around. How do you break this down on a team that claims they want to be run first?
So there's obviously injury concern. He's been that way since his days with Auburn. This is Kerryon Johnson. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, and hoping that with the addition of CJ Anderson that he can play more games because they're not going to grind him out. In the games that he started last year, I think he averaged just shy of 13 carries a game. I think I have him roughly around the same. I think I bumped him to about 13 and a half. I have him playing 15 games because I think just through that time, he'll likely miss one. 206 rushes for me, and then 1,186 total yards and 9 touchdowns because his involvement in both the rushing game and the passing game was very true. I think during that same span, he did put up, I think, on a 16 per average, about 60 targets in that span. I think it was a 7 or 8 game stretch where he was starter, or maybe a little bit less than that. But either way, I think there's upside for him if he stays healthy. I get the hype for him. I'm just not buying it into the third or fourth round hype. But he gave you a lot of upside. I did project him a little bit more of his ceiling because I think if you're going to get more of a run heavy team, it's going to go through him. Outside of Riddick and CJ Anderson, Riddick's still going to be his pass catching guy. And during Johnson's starts last year, Riddick still averaged right around 6 or 7 targets a game. I think that remains the same. He won't run the ball. I have him only rushing it about 37 times, but I have him at 78 targets, 60 receptions, because he's still a good safety blanket for Matthew Stafford, especially if guys do get banged up. Just 3 total touchdowns for him. He's more of just a bye week fill-in during that stretch there. CJ Anderson is just more of a backup until Kerryon Johnson gets banged up.
So in this version of the Detroit Patriots, CJ Anderson is LeGarrette Blount, Kerryon Johnson is Dion Lewis, and Theoretic is James Wyatt for me, more or less. Albeit lighter.
That is so true, though.
So I got Kerryon Johnson. I only projected him at 13 games, and I normally say I don't like to project rookies or sophomores to miss time. But when it dates back to your college days, notably so, then I kind of have to. Especially when it's repeated hamstring issues, soft tissue problems, not the freak breaks and tears that, you could normally turn a blind eye to as not being repeated.
Yeah.
Strains and sprains, not as easy. So I've only got him at 13 games, 159 rush attempts. It's 12.2 per game. I do think they brought in CJ Anderson with the idea of we know we're going to have to split work to keep Kerryon healthy. So he very, very well could stay healthy, play 16 games, and come in closer to 200 touches. That'll reflect in my final rankings where I take injury and things like that into account, or the way that or points per game and all that fun stuff. But right now, just 159 rush attempts, coming in at 763 yards. I do have him at 6 touchdowns. I do have him getting 2 receiving touchdowns. I do still think he sees 39 to 40 targets in those 13 games, 31 receptions, just over 200 yards. That is the one thing that was underrated last year is Kerryon Johnson as a pass catcher. Yes. I fully believe in Kerryon Johnson's ability. What I don't believe in is Kerryon Johnson's ability to stay healthy, and I think that CJ Anderson was brought in to try to protect that health and for them to more split carries. I do give the edge to Kerryon, but only slightly.
Sure.
As for CJ Anderson, got him at 153 rushes, 689 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I do think Kerryon Johnson down near the goal line has value because of his receiving work. It's going to take a couple rush touchdowns away from CJ Anderson, although that touchdown number could be low in my analogy. 24 targets. CJ Anderson has proven that he can catch the football better than LeGarrette Blount could, so I do see him working it a little bit there. 17 receptions, just 1 touchdown through the air. Put CJ Anderson in prime handcuff territory when Kerryon Johnson misses time. Not quite enough volume to start him outside of bye weeks or injury, though.
Yeah.
And Theoretic, again, I agree with your safety net analogy. 67 targets is around a little lighter than what he saw last year. Again, That's because of Kerryon. That's because of CJ Anderson. It's not like those guys can't catch passes. So that does take a little bit away from Riddick. 396 yards, 2 touchdowns, not a rosterable commodity, in my opinion.
No, and I think you'll have more of an impact in those deeper leagues, deeper benches.
He will.
I don't think you'll see much play regardless, though.
No, I don't either. I think he's a change of pace. I think he does see some third down work, but because the other two put a little more guesswork in there, because Kerryon and CJ both can run. They both can get outside if they need to. They both can catch passes. Theoretic comes in, you almost know what it's for.
Exactly. I mean, like he had, I think, a couple games last year. He had no rushing attempts, but he saw 6 or 7, 8 targets. So it's like, okay,
yep,
that's been
what he does.
It's just what he does. Yeah.
Yep. All right, moving on to the wide receivers. Marvin Jones was hurt last year. He's going to be back. Kenny Golladay obviously had a mini breakout, even though it wasn't a massive breakout. And you bring in Danny Amendola to play the Golden Tate role. How do you see these wide receivers stacking?
So I think we're going to go off of a little bit of what we saw late season from Golladay and when he became the true number one because Marvin Jones got hurt and Golden Tate got traded away. But I think Jones is going to have just as significant of a role, and it's going to be more of a 50-50 split almost between him and Golladay, where Jones is more of the better value. Because when he's healthy and when this offense decides to want to push vertically, because at times, even with Wilson, you saw they do want to push the football downfield. So you may get that same transition over to two decent deep threats, even though they're both used in different ways. So with Golladay, I'm as the team leader in targets at 121. Just over 1,100 yards at 15.7 yards per reception is where he does well in that 50-50 range. Plus, he does work in the intermediate range as well. 7 touchdowns in total. Then with Marvin Jones, 107 targets, 63 catches, just shy of 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. I am going with more of the ceiling approach in terms of games played, both at 16. Jones, I think, has been relatively healthy outside of last year, if I remember correctly. And Golladay again, though he's been banged up, he's played through injuries. As for Amendola, I think he does see third fiddle in this offense. 74 targets in just 14 games, just over 500 yards and 1 touchdown. I think just with the lack of passing upside, I think falls onto the slot receivers, as I think they'll try to push the football a little more vertically when they want to run or when they want to pass it, and then use the running backs as more of that, true traditional first and second down, and then push it.
All right. I agree with Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones. I do have Kenny Golladay at just 15 games. He has played banged up. I don't think he's played a full season yet. That's fine. 114 targets, 67 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. I've got Golladay pretty much right in line with you if he played all 16 games. That's what it comes down to. Kenny Golladay is going to be a solid wide receiver too. I have Marvin Jones at 92 targets, 53 receptions, 759 yards, 5 touchdowns. I do have him giving away a little bit to not just Kenny Golladay, TJ Hawkinson being there and demanding more target volume than you'd seen from the tight ends last year. Danny Amendola coming in. So I do have Marvin Jones losing a little bit, but not a lot at that 759 and 5 mark. I agree that he is still used a decent amount. He does still have a role. I just think he's giving a little bit more weight to Golladay than you do.
Sure.
As for Amendola, you mentioned they want to push it downfield, and I don't disagree with that. But the other thing Seattle did a lot with Doug Baldwin is we needed third down. Who do we go to when we need a third down? Because we're going to run on first and second down, hopefully put us in third and short, and we're going to need a reliable over the middle guy to get that done. Kenny Golladay fulfills some of that role, but Danny Amendola, that's really his calling card. I have him at 78 targets, 549 yards, 2 touchdowns. So I'm right there with you. So I think the wide receivers is pretty chalk. Golladay is the one you want to own. Watch his ADP because it could get way out of hand, making Marvin Jones the better value. I don't disagree with you at all. Danny Amendola, I'm kind of out on that.
Yeah, I mean,
also 14 games for Amendola.
Yeah, I haven't played. Yeah, just a 14. I think just given what we saw from TJ Jones after they traded Golden Tate away, I think really helped show that I think it's more of is Danny Amendola on a Golden Tate level, or is he more of just a better TJ Jones? So it's real in the middle for me there.
I think Danny Amendola is Danny Amendola, honestly.
I mean, I would hope so.
Yeah.
I don't want to be somebody else.
I mean, we know what Danny Amendola is by now.
Yes.
So onto the tight ends. TJ Hawkinson, they drafted him early, and then they bring in Jesse James, who's shown some ability as a pass catcher. Again, it's Matt Patricia. Daryl Bevell was known to use his tight ends, and Jimmy Graham specifically in Seattle, and it wasn't just in the end zone early on when Bevell was there. It was to the tune of 90 to 100 plus targets for Jimmy Graham. You bring in Jesse James, like I mentioned, also who's a pretty reliable pass catcher, and you mentioned the New England ties for Matt Patricia. Well, we already know what Gronk did. So how do we see Hawk?
Well, Hockenson is not Jimmy Graham or Rob Gronkowski just yet. And you mentioned the tight ends pre-Jimmy Graham days. It was pretty bad for Daryl Bevell tight ends, but you bring in an elite pass catcher like Graham, even though he's in his later years, you saw that uptick in targets. I think the targets will roughly mirror that during the Jimmy Graham days with a little bit less, because Hockenson is a very good pass catching tight end. He's a very good, well-balanced tight end, and he gives you that, I guess, position advantage against, safeties and slower linebackers or just smaller linebackers, which you've seen nowadays, that he can go up and win passes. So for me, I have Hockenson at 71 targets, 54 catches, just shy of 700 yards at 691, 5 touchdowns. Because one thing that Stafford will do is randomly throw 2-3 touchdowns to tight ends every few games. It's
looking at you, Joe.
Exactly. So I think Hawk will have some of his upside. He is in that deep clusterfuck of tight ends. I want to buy into he's a rookie tight end. He won't see a lot of work, but Jesse James has been a backup for his whole life, and he's just been whatever. I mean, I have him 35 targets. He hasn't reached with just 1 touchdown there. I think he's just more of a backup. I think Hawk, it's been said that he's the number 1 tight end in this offense. I think he'll be that by game day. You don't take a guy 8th overall and not use them in that role.
So I looked at what George Kittle did year 1. And I looked at kind of the New England ties, and I looked at Daryl Bevell, and I just kind of looked at this offense and said, TJ Hawkinson's getting himself 80 plus. So I got TJ Hawkinson at 86 targets, 62 receptions, 663 yards, 6 touchdowns. Again, does put him in the mess of tight ends. He's actually my 9, but he's in that stretch of tight ends. It's like 13 guys within 15 points of each other. So he's right in the thick of it. And, yes, there is the narrative that rookie tight ends don't get work. There's also the narrative that isn't always the case. And if you truly believe TJ Hawkinson's special, which I do, TJ Hawkinson is going to come in and he is going to get work and he is going to have value. He's not going to set himself apart in year 1, but I think he's going to be in the thick of that league average, fantasy average mess of tight ends, especially with the way that these guys have seen offenses run and or run offenses, to where he's just as good of a dart throw at the end as anybody else. Now, again, people might overbuy into the hype. Watchers ADP, because like Golladay, he has a chance to get out of range of where it's worth it or reasonable. But I do think that TJ Hawkinson could be just as good of a throw at the end of the draft as any other tight end you're going to take there.
Yeah, I think with people in redraft, there's a lot of people out there who don't believe in tight ends year 1. So I think Hawk shouldn't see his ADP jump too much. I do like your comparison with George Kittle. I think he could end up being like I forgot the name there. But like he could end up showing more than what we've seen from rookie tight ends. So I think there is that true upside to him, which is why I have him. I have him a little bit higher, but not too much in terms of my ranking. So
yeah, he's higher than most rookie tight ends would be for me. And again, that's just because I believe he's special, and I do think the narrative's out there. But you're also going to have the narrative out there amongst especially some of your not industry people that don't research that. They're going to say, well, Patricia and Gronk and Bevell and Graham, and kind of draw those comparisons and expect major things out of TJ Hawkinson, especially with him being a high draft pick. So yeah, that's kind of why I said keep an eye on that, because both narratives are going to get spawned, and it's going to depend on which one people buy into, how worth it TJ Hawkinson is.
Very true.
All right, and Jesse James is exactly that. He's just a backup. He's going to see your standard backup amount of targets.
Yep. He'll be annoying.
Yep, just like he was in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Beer review.
Beer review.
All right, Dan, you got Stone Scorpion Bowl Tropical IPA. What did you think?
It's a just a true traditional West Coast. Not super juicy up front. Obviously there's enough to be there to give it that tropical taste, more of a citra. I get a little bit of mango, a little bit of grapefruit on there. The hot bitterness does show what's been traditional with Stone. It's a very solid, West Coast IPA if that's your style. And I finished about 80% of it. I try to save it for the beer review.
Yep. I was drinking Apple Spice Gosa from Crane Brewing at Raytown, Missouri. Overall, very, very solid beer. It's very tart. The apple is crisp. It's definitely there, but it's very, very tart, almost lip puckering. Truly a sour. Very, very refreshing, especially since I was in the pool right before I got out here, or right before I got to the show. Out in 80, 90-degree weather. So super refreshing drinker. Very, very easy, but it is gonna pucker your lips. It's like sour. It's like almost a sour apple Gosa almost, but very, very good. So. Well done to Crane Brewing, who I hadn't heard of until yesterday.
Well done.
All right, let's go ahead and, unfortunately, get to the Packers.
Fuck.
Yeah. As a Bears fan, you as a Vikings fan, this is painful because as our unbiased opinions, we have to say nice things about the Packers sometimes. Your must-owns this year, Aaron Rodgers, although don't believe he's elite tier. We'll get into that in a minute. And Devontae Adams for sure. Devontae Adams is going to be elite tier. First question, though. Do you believe Rodgers is falling from the elite tier? Because I do.
It's hard to say because this whole coaching trash, this whole coaching staff has changed. And because of one down year from Rodgers, you want to discount what we've seen from him in the past 8 years.
I take that back. I didn't drop him from the elite.
He's my QB4. He's not like the number one guy that you can trust. I don't even know if he's a top 5 QB taken in most leagues. I think I'd name alone he could be. But with Rodgers, I think he bounces back year 2 with a lot of these rookie guys that we had from last year. You saw as Adams year 2 with Jimmy Graham. We like Jay Sternberger here. Hopefully their running game get figured out. So I think, and the defense should take a step forward, giving them not so much, I guess, behind time. But either way, 593 attempts for him, for me, 4,300 yards, 30 touchdowns, 7 picks. I do think that goes up to more of where he's been, on his career average. Some rushing floor, but he is 36 years old. I kind of factored in just a little bit to where if he's going to run a little bit less or more. But he's firmly a top 5 QB for me. I haven't done the West. I haven't done Mahomes and guys yet, so he might fall out of that slightly. But I think he's going to be better than what he was last year, but not on that, that elite 7% touchdown rate that he's been known to do. Yep.
So I'm going to do a blow pop pivot. When I said I didn't think Rodgers was elite anymore, that was a complete misstatement. Patrick Mahomes, Rodgers is a 2-tier quarterback, but only because Patrick Mahomes is on his own tier by a lot for me. So Aaron Rodgers is my 6th in projected points after I plug in confidence and everything like that. He's going to be my 4. There's going to be 2 guys that fall behind him after I do that. I know that for a fact. So Rodgers will be my QB4. Again, doesn't mean he should be the first quarterback taken. Doesn't mean you take him in round 4 where people are used to taking Aaron Rodgers. He is still better than an end-of-year draft quarterback and will be better than that, though. 615 pass attempts for me, 4,400 yards, 35 touchdowns, 7 picks. Little bit of a rushing floor because it is Rodgers and he does that thing and takes off on occasion. Got him at 2 rushing touchdowns, 235 rush yards. Right in line kind of with where he's been for his career. So could say more of the same from Aaron Rodgers. Again, he's going to be right there in the thick of it, in really a tier that's going to run from 2 back to 6. So he should end up as my quarterback 4, and just kind of be what you're used to him being.
I actually don't hate him in a redraft because I think he's going I think he's more of a 6 or 7 or more of a 6th, 7th round guy. You get,
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, Mahomes, Watson, Luck. So I think you can get him in.
You just name the 3 guys that'll be ahead of him for me.
Yeah, exactly. And guys like Mayfield who could see some of that Watson rides after his rookie season and be and leapfrog some of these other quarterbacks that he shouldn't leapfrog just yet. So Rodgers could be at a decent price.
Yeah, you could actually get a value on him because I agree with where he's going right now. I think that's actually the right ADP for him. So,
yeah.
Moving on, the running game. There's been rumors they want to get the running backs more involved in the pass catching game. Aaron Jones shouldn't be suspended to start this season. Jamal Williams without McCarthy, who knows if he'll still be a thorn in everybody's side. How do you got this falling out?
This team just doesn't run the football a shit ton, but Jones is massively efficient when he runs the football. I said fuck it and played him and projected him at 16 games because I think there's a pretty decent chance that he can. 214 rushes, 1,300 total yards, almost 1,400 total yards and 10 touchdowns. He's had back-to-back 5.5 yards per carry per season. I think that dips a little bit now that he's getting the bulk of the carries because I have Jamal Williams just carrying the football 69 times. I'm not going to project the two rookies that are behind him at this point because I don't think that role is theirs just yet. But Jones, I think, does fill in the hype as a potential high-end RB2 in this offense, but it's really going to dictate if was it Matt LaFleur, if he believes in this hype that's there, with Jones, if he's going to actually give him the amount of touches that he needs to break into that high RB2, low RB1.
Well, and get him more involved in the passing game too. Because you look at it and he says, I want these guys to catch the ball more. Aaron Jones is going to be your best at doing that from an efficiency standpoint, even though Jamal Williams has better hands at this point in their careers. Because you don't have a Ty Montgomery there. There is nobody there that's a straight pass catching back. So it's going to have to come out of Jones and Williams.
I have Jones at 60 targets. I do think Williams is just a pure backup at this point. 27 for me for just him. I think this is the Jones backfield, though. 10 total touchdowns to just 2 for Williams.
Well, congratulations, because we're almost right in line. 219 rush attempts for Aaron Jones, just under 1,400 yards, 12 total touchdowns, 11 rushing, 1 receiving, just because they did pound him in there whenever they got there. I do think that he puts out some good touchdown numbers. He is a back-end running back 1 for me right now. I might leapfrog Devonta Freeman ahead of him. Aaron Jones is my 11 at the moment.
So you have his yards per carry is going to be pretty high for you then.
His yards per carry at 1,100 total yards, 1,100 rush yards. I projected him at a
1,100. I thought you said 1,400.
1,400 total.
Total.
1,100
okay.
rush.
Okay. We're exactly the same then.
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus.
No, 1,400 total yards, 1,100 rush yards, 12 touchdowns. And touchdowns are fluky, so
exactly.
Moving on to beyond that, Jamal Williams again. I do have him as just a backup. I got him a little bit more involved in some third down work, just because he's been the better pass blocker as well. So I got him at 48 targets because of that work. But I still have Aaron Jones getting more at 57. I don't really see a whole lot of Jamal Williams. I'm right in the same realm as far as total yards for you. I got him at just under 600.
I wouldn't be shocked if he loses his job.
I wouldn't either.
Like Dexter Williams by this, by like game 5 or 6.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. So a lot of the hype, this year has been, do you buy Aaron Jones? Absolutely, you buy into Aaron Jones, and Jamal Williams is nothing. Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much as we saw last year before Jones got suspended.
Exactly. Moving on to the wide receivers, a lot of hype about who's the wide receiver 2. The media says it's MVS. I believe it's MVS. DJ Primo over at Loaded Box. Shout out those guys. Had an interesting take on why it might be ESP. What do you think?
I put Geronimo Allison because I think he is going to be one of the starters.
I should cut your mic for saying Geronimo Allison's the wide receiver 2.
I know, but it doesn't mean he's going to be productive with that.
I should cut you for saying Geronimo Allison's going to be the wide receiver.
I don't want to, but I don't think it's MVS. I don't think because of the doghouse that we got during that article, it's because he faded so heavily last year towards the end of the season. It could be Jake Kumaro at this point. Big shout out to that. The fact that
spoilers, Kumaro's my 3.
Yeah, I only projected 2 guys. I projected Adams at 173 targets, 112 receptions. He's a true, through and through wide receiver. When I think he's my 3 right now behind Juju and Hopkins.
I projected 4 guys, and that's because if I don't know, I tend to project more guys, actually. For a lot of teams I was unsure of, there were situations where I was projecting out 3 or 4 more guys because I didn't want to take a guess at who I was projecting. Let me get it on paper and see how it falls out.
That's fair. I went the opposite route, obviously, for that because I think Allison will be a part of wide receiver 3 sets. I think he'll be, in terms of snaps, he'll be the number 2. In terms of production, that could change, though.
I think Geronimo Allison isn't on the team.
It'd make me happy.
Yeah.
I didn't want to project Allison
I
there.
didn't. And here's the thing about MVS being in the doghouse, and I'm going to get into the psychology behind this. MVS was in the doghouse at the end of the last year. You know who's come out and said nice things about MVS in the offseason and how they've worked in the offseason and how they looked in OTAs?
I hope it's Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers.
Good.
Aaron Rodgers is the one that's come out to the media and said Marquez Valdez-Scantling has looked good. He's looked like the best of the other wide receivers. He's looked faster. He's looked better coming in and out of breaks. His game speed has looked good. All the hype on MVS has come from Aaron Rodgers. And we know Aaron Rodgers is not big on lying to the media.
True.
The flip side of that, what DJ Primo put out there is he thinks it might be ESB because he thinks that Rodgers is talking to the media to give MVS a confidence boost. And you're not hearing anything about ESB, so that doesn't sound like Rodgers to me. I am buying into the fact that it's Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He was clearly the second used wide receiver last year. Granted, Allison was hurt, but second used wide receiver last year. Devontae Adams is my 4, by the way. I think I'm right there with you.
He's going to be a beast.
Let me vet that real quick.
He'll be as consistent as he was last year.
Devontae Adams is my 4. Absolutely as consistent as last year. I've got Marquez Valdez-Scantling coming in at 90 targets, 49 receptions, 718 yards, 5 touchdowns. It's not insane. It's Marvin Jones.
That's pretty much my drama, Allison. You can flip, and that's why that I didn't project anybody else. Because I don't care enough to want to know because it's going to be just Adams. I think you take a dart throw on your guy at the end of your draft, and then you move on if he doesn't show up.
That's whoever the 2 is. I said I projected ESB and Jake Kumaro, but they're projected at 57 and 61 targets, 34 and 42 receptions, 526 yards for Kumaro, 4 touchdowns, him being the better of the 2. I mean, It's not fantasy relevant numbers for ESB and Kumaro. I just needed to get it on paper to make sure that neither one of them were going to be relevant.
That's fine. That's completely fair.
As for the tight end, what do you see out of Jimmy Graham coming into year 2?
I mean,
target volume was there
last year. He was I think 95 last year. I have him dipped down to 87. Dipped down to 87 with the rise of the wide receivers here. But still being just fine. Just 4 touchdowns, 626 yards. So again, in a clusterfuck of tight ends, that's where he lies. That's where he should be.
He is in the clusterfuck of tight ends. 84 targets for me, 54 receptions, 618 yards, and 6 touchdowns.
Wow, yeah. I mean,
clusterfuck of tight ends.
Clusterfuck of tight ends, folks.
Although less upside than the rest of the clusterfuck of tight ends because he wasn't efficient and he wasn't a touchdown monster last year like you'd seen from him before.
And I don't think Rodgers' looks is what I think. Rodgers has eyes for Adams in the red zone, and that's it.
I think so too. So, summing it up, Aaron Rodgers, the ADP is right for him. He should be top 5 quarterback again this year. Aaron Jones, I think we're both in agreement. He should be a probably RB2, low running back 1, probably in that 3rd tier running backs.
Yeah.
Jamal Williams is nothing. Devontae Adams will be a top tier wide receiver, and then take your dart throw on whoever you believe the 2 is because they're probably going to have wide receiver 3 upside.
I want it to be ESB. I want DJ to be right because I think ESB is the most talented receiver of the bunch.
I think he's the most. I want it to be Jake Kumaro personally, but I do think ESB is the most talented of the bust. I want Kumaro because it'd be a good story. It's probably MVS because of what you hear in the media, or maybe the fantasy community hype is right and it's Geronimo Allison. But I will die on the never Geronimo Allison train.
It's going to be Jawan Moore. It's going to be
just going to be the guy everybody.
Yeah, right. It's going to be the sure unforgotten guy.
Just to screw that Jeff Janis comes back from the dead.
Fucking Jeff Janis. Oh man,
Jeff Janis
loses shit.
All right, on to the Vikings. Let's go ahead and wrap this up with Minnesota. Kirk Cousins is practicing against defenses he saw last year. It's a novel thought. He was all right in terms of yardage last year, a bit inefficient. really struggled to get the end zone. It's like he didn't have problems moving the ball. He had problems actually generating offense though, or generating points, which is kind of important for your offense.
Yes.
And really, the offense never seemed to click last year either. With Zimmer being a defensive-minded guy that wants to run the football, and Flip not really being that. So, what do you see out of Kirk Cousins this year? How do you project him?
I think it's going to be tough to run the football a shit ton when you play against just better offenses overall, what you saw last year. But either way, 581 attempts for Cousins, just shy of 4,300 yards, 29 touchdowns, 10 picks, 1 rushing touchdown, 5 fumbles. So he'll be in line with that high-end streamers back in QB1, so as where he was last year. I think the consistency-wise could be a fluctuant because I think if the running game gets it going and the defense is on point, you may see less of Kirk Cousins. He's going to dip in my rankings a little bit after I'm done with all my projections because I think the Vikings defense gets back on track. Dalvin Cook is an absolute monster, and I think that hurts the overall passing attempts for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I also have Dalvin Cook hurting the overall pass attempts for Kirk Cousins. I got him at just 546. 4,200 yards, 29 touchdowns, 10 picks. Unfortunately, it's a lot like Matt Stafford with Kirk Cousins in the sense that the yardage is still going to be there. He's never been much of a touchdown guy, and I think he's been passed over by enough guys either with elite touchdown efficiency or rushing floor to where it kind of deflates what Kirk Cousins is. So he's going to be a fine streamer, but I can't, like the last couple of years, throw him out there as a late round quarterback that I'm super excited to buy.
Yep.
I think he's a fine streamer. He's a good backup to have. He's good to have in Superflex. He's not going to be a guy that I want to have as my number one quarterback just because of the lack of rushing floor and a team that just outwardly states, hey, I want to run the football.
Yep, I agree.
All right, moving on to the running backs, and I bet we're going to differ on Dalvin Cook's health if I had to take a wild guess.
It is, because I said, again, wishful thinking, Vikings fan, I'm going to be a little bit biased here. I do have him playing 16 games. I think what we saw towards the end of last year really, lessened my worries on him playing 16 games.
I think the repeated hamstring injuries make it, again, it's like Kerryon Johnson for me. It just makes it hard for me to say, hey, he's going to play 16 games. He will come up in my rankings as I adjust for points per game because I did give him the same efficiency he had at the end of last year. I gave him the same volume and everything.
I think with Cook, it was more of tears and breaks in college instead of the hamstring problems.
Yeah, it's been the hamstring problems in the NFL though.
Yeah, it's been 1 year of hamstring problems because he tore his ACL, in his rookie season. But either way, it's me being wishful thinking because I
will Allen Robinson of running backs.
Yeah, right. So, anyways, 253 rushes for him, 58 receptions gives them right around 1,600 total yards, 11 total touchdowns. Because he is efficient in both the running and passing game. I think with the amount of targets in the red zone, he could see some of his rushing numbers dip. I have Alexander Madison failing 4 rushing touchdowns from him, not being Latavius Murray, but as the true handcuff to Cook because you don't trade up into the 3rd round to take a guy and not use them as a backup when you already have a starter. I think Madison will be more of a nuisance to the touchdown game than more of the overall yardage. Madison's got 110 rushes, 430 running yards, and 4 touchdowns. Not much involved in the passing game. That wasn't his role in Boise State, even though he did show that he could do it. Cook's just too good at doing that. You don't want to take that away from him. Cook's a firm RB1 for me in terms of points per game at 15.9. The health is a concern, but again, with wishful thinking, I do have Cook playing 16 games.
Yep. So Dalvin Cook comes in as my 18 and playing only 13 games. So if you extrapolate that over 16 games, he's right up there with Aaron Jones and Joe Mixon. As far as how I projected him, just under 14 carries a game. I've got him right at around 20 touches a game, though, or 20 attempts, rather. 185 rush attempts for this year, 925 rush yards, again, in 13 games, 5 rush touchdowns over that time frame. I got him at 58 targets, 46 receptions, 369 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. So basically, Cook isn't healthy. He's a running back, too. Cook is healthy. He's a back-end running back 1. You should draft Alvin Cook wherever his ADP is because you can't bet that hard on health. He will come up from his 18 when I project on a points per game and a confidence basis.
Yeah, he is. His ADP is pretty good. I think in Scott Fish is in the 3rd round. I think in most normal redrafts he's been a mid-second. So I think his ADP is perfectly fine when you are pairing him with guys like Melvin Gordon and David Johnson and things like that.
Yeah, we'll see where he ends up.
True.
I might be, might be a few spots too high for me. But again, I know that Vikings fans like Stephon Diggs love Dalvin Cook. It's been a common thing. How many years in a row have we heard if Diggs can stay healthy, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Dalvin Cook's a lot of the same way. Massive upside. No question whether he can do it when he's on the field. It's can he stay on the field? So, yeah, Alex Madison, with the injuries, I got him at 103 rush attempts. Latavius Murray light, basically 443 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown, just 25 targets, though. It's Latavius Murray light for Alex Madison. I agree that you don't move up to get somebody if you're not going to use him as at least the handcuff. Mike Boone has legal problems. Rock Thomas has problems,
Yeah.
So
it's all him.
Onto the wide receivers. We mentioned Thielen. We mentioned Diggs. There's been hype around Chad Beebe.
Right.
So Adam Thielen was an interesting case. He came out absolutely on fire last year, and then he wasn't. The first half was insane for him. He was seeing 10, 11, 12 targets a game. Second half, he kind of fell back to more reasonable numbers, which in comparison made it feel bad. It wasn't as bad as it felt, though. Stephon Diggs, the story with him has been that he's massively efficient. He was actually massively efficient at the end of the last season when they started running this offense more the way they wanted to after DiFilippo left, but always had problems staying healthy. So how do you project Thielen and Diggs this year? It's the conversation we have every year. Thielen or Diggs, Thielen or Diggs, Thielen or Diggs. So we're going to have it again this year. Thielen or Diggs.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing as last year. Diggs was on pace to outproduce him in a 16-game rate. I have it at the same thing this year. I have Diggs playing 14 and Thielen 16. Thielen's going to lead the team in targets, receptions, yards. He'll tie with Diggs and touchdowns like we saw last year. I have them both at 9 this year. I think they're at 8 last year. They're both going to be wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. I think the fall off from Thielen last year was the team not having a true number 3 receiver, and most defenses putting double coverage on both Diggs and Thielen and letting guys like Eldrick Robinson, Daquan Treadwell, and even Kyle Rudolph run.
And knowing that they weren't really going to throw to Rudolph because they didn't.
Exactly. And Dalvin Cook was still banged up, wasn't in fully game shape at that point. So it made sense why the Thielen drop off happened. It was, it's actually pretty obvious when you look back at it. But if Diggs does play a full 16 games,
it doesn't.
Offense. It's that simple. He proved it last year towards the end of the year when he became the true number 1 and he was able to beat double coverage and able to use his elite route running and like just that ability that he has to be that guy. But Diggs has only played, I think, 14 or 15 games at most.
Yep.
So can't project him at 16. It's just not his game anymore.
Nope, I can't project him at 16 either. I'm right there with you. I got Diggs at 14, Thielen at 16. I've got Thielen at 1,100 yards, Diggs just under 1,100 yards, 708 touchdowns, respectively. Edge to Diggs there because he is the more he's
a beast.
He's a beast in the red zone, for sure. Thielen, a little bit higher catch rate, 91 receptions to Diggs is 85. They're separated by 4 spots in my rankings. They're wide receiver 2s with wide receiver 1 upside like they are every year. You're happy with both of them. The ADPs should be about the same.
Yeah, it's the same as last year.
There is no hype for a third wide receiver here, by the way. The Chad Beebe thing was very tongue-in-cheek.
I don't really care who's the number 3. I just hope the number 3 is the guy that can actually continually be the number 3 guy.
Never. Is Jake Weineke still there?
He was practice squad. I don't even know if he makes the team. Maybe. I know we want him to be a thing.
I do.
I'm rooting for Dylan Mitchell.
I would like to see Dylan Mitchell, actually. I think Dylan Mitchell fits that slot role very, very well.
Well, I think he fits the outside role.
Oh, yeah. Allows Diggs to go inside.
Diggs and Thielen both play inside and outside. So
it gives you guys you can move around, which they do with Diggs and Thielen anyway.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I would like to see Dylan Mitchell do that. He'll be an interesting one I'm watching in camp. I'd like to see him go ahead and take it because I think he has a talent too.
Yep.
On to the tight ends. Kyle Rudolph just got re-signed. They drafted Irv Smith. Kyle Rudolph not really used a bunch last year. How do we feel about him this year?
He's
after
not seen
signing the
100
extension?
targets like he saw a few years ago.
Nope.
Irv Smith, I think, will have a role, but I think this team wants to run multi-tight end sets because of the lack of a tight end 3. And I think because this team is still in a win-down mode, you're going to still see a lot of Kyle Rudolph. Rudolph's at 87 targets for me, just over 600 yards and 5 touchdowns because he can be a red zone threat. That's why his nickname was Rudolph the Red Zone Reindeer. And again, clusterfuck of tight ends is where he belongs. I don't like his upside. So he's going to be on the lower end for me in that cluster of tight ends. And as for Irv Smith, he's going to be more of a Dallas Goedert guy, I guess, in year 1.
Yeah, I've got Irv Smith more as a Dallas Goedert type of guy also, just a little less than. I got Kyle Rudolph at 89 targets, 634 yards, 6 touchdowns. Guess where that puts him?
Yep.
Clusterfuck
Right
of tight ends.
Clusterfuck of tight ends.
Right in the clusterfuck of tight ends. Irv Smith Jr., 30 targets, 227 yards, 2 touchdowns. Will be noticeable, but not relevant.
Yep.
That's all I got on the Vikings. I guess if we're going to wrap it up. Kirk Cousins, no. Dalvin Cook, 2 with upside. Assuming he can stay healthy for me. For you, he's kind of solidly a back end 1.
Yep.
You're assuming he'll stay healthy. My
wishful thinking.
It's wishful thinking, yes. Diggs and Thielen, exactly the same thing they've been the last few years. Rudolph, I probably am less confident about him than some of the other clusterfuck of tight ends, but if you're confident about him, go for it. You do you. As far as how we project the division, the Vikings fan is projecting the Vikings to win it with a record at 10-6. I'm projecting the Bears to win it as a Bears fan with a record at 11-5.
Shocker.
You have the Vikings at 10-6. Dan's got the Bears at 9-7. We both have the other team in second. Packers in third. I've got them at 9-7. Dan has them at 8-8. We both have the Lions at 4-12. And I just really hope Matt Patricia gets fired for what he's done to that offense and Jim Bob Cooter, because couldn't have an NFC North episode without getting Jim Bob Cooter in there.
Yes.
Next episode, we will be moving on to the West. We'll have the AFC. We got 2 more weeks left of division previews. It's our last chance tonight to the Wrestling for a Cure partnership. So do that if you want. Midwest FF Expo, we will be there on August 18th. It's in Canton, Ohio. Come visit us. We got some podcast time set up. We'll have a booth set up, doing some cool things yet to be determined. You can get tickets at MidwestFFExpo.com, promo code BEER. Anything else for our lovely listeners, like maybe where to follow us?
You can follow us on Twitter at BeerfulFF, which is the same for Instagram. And on Tapped, you can follow us on Facebook, Beerful Fantasy Football. Hit like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit the bell button to be notified when we go live. Please interact with us. We like to answer all your guys' questions, give you guys our quote-unquote drunken thoughts on what we think of certain players and questions that you may have. Do all those things and continue to keep following us. We love to see your faces.
I have this little Scott Hall girl that decided to come down on the front of my hat that I just noticed on the camera. Anyway, we're done here. At Hot BFF with 2 P's, at 30 BFF with 2 F's. Yep, we'll catch you guys next time or something.
Thanks.
See ya.
Peace.